And you're on.
Can I have a motion to call this meeting to order? It is the meeting of the Council on Aging Board of Directors, which was rescheduled to tonight. It was supposed to be on Monday night, but we had snow. And so I need a motion to open.
Motion? Motion. Oh, all right, Deb. And?
Second?
Okay.
Barbara.
Okay. I'm going to read the mission of the COA, and I want everyone to keep this in mind as we go forward with these interviews. The mission of the Council on Aging is to advocate for Groveland's older adults, to identify their needs, to develop and implement services, to meet their health, economic, social, and cultural needs, to encourage maximum independence, and to improve their quality of life. I also would like you to keep in mind the goals that we came up with for FY24 in our budget requests, and that is to attract and retain engaged and qualified staff to fully implement our mission statement, to increase support of elders and the general public suffering from food insecurity, to leverage programming and resources to provide a sense of community for the growing senior population. I'm going to ask Larry, who is the chairperson of our search committee, to take over now. I don't know.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry McKelney. I was the chairperson of the search committee, and I think it would be helpful for all of the board members to introduce themselves going down.
I'm Laurel Pahalski. I'm the chair of the board.
I'm Barbara Sanborn, and I was also on the search committee.
I'm Linda Brown, and I'm on the board.
Irene Thomas, and I'm a board member.
Marie Waller, and I'm a board member.
Deb Stevenson, board member.
On January 6th, the search committee had its first meeting, and we had, I believe, 4 meetings that we took to deliberate and find the 2 candidates who are bringing forward, we are bringing forward to the board tonight for interviews. I want to thank board members Marie Waller, Barbara Sanborn, myself, Laurel as the ex officio member of the board, Sarah McGrath from the Finance Committee, Vice Chair, Jason Naves, Vice Chair of the Selectmen, Rebecca Oldham, Town Administrator. I also want to thank Jan Dempsey, Beth Cuniff, Joanne Donnelly, and Susan Hancock, who also had input into the process and represented the community at large. We read about a dozen sets of resumes and interviewed 3 candidates and are moving 2 forward to the board. I want the board to know that these candidates came forward with a unanimous vote of the search committee. And my expectation that I laid out for the search committee was that we would only send candidates to the board that we felt were qualified, capable of doing the job of director. And it is our job tonight to try to decide which of these 2 wonderful candidates would be the best fit for us moving forward. So with that out of the way, we have...
Procedures. I mean, do you want to handle them?
Sure.
Because
Okay. So tonight we have questions 1 through 8 on the board. And I think if we just go in order, starting with Deb, doing question number 1. And who's there next? Marie, question number 2. Irene, question 3.
Linda.
Linda, thank you.
Want my name?
Yeah, no, thank you. I know it was one of my sister's names. I almost called you Dorothy. And then Barbara would be question 5, Laurel question 6, and I will take the last question, and there are actually 2 questions there.
It's like a little follow-up question.
So are there any questions
If necessary?
from you? Any questions about this?
So this is my question.
Those are the questions.
That's-
Yeah, well, there's.
And then there's a
a
follow-up?
follow-up, right.
Okay.
Unless they answer that in their original answer,
They-
Unless it's
if
in.
it's needed. They
Okay.
may answer that in their
Okay,
original answer.
okay.
Is there a lot of echoing with the microphone, or is it just us
Yes.
hearing it?
It's the PA, I can turn that down.
Okay, I mean, I didn't know if it was, okay.
So we will interview the first candidate, Sean Cass, and ask him our questions. We hopefully will have a brief discussion afterwards, maybe take a little break before the second candidate, Karen Campbell, comes in. We will have another discussion. We should decide now how we're going to vote. And whether, we could vote by roll call, we could vote by raising hand, we could vote by ballot. I don't think there's any restrictions. I don't know how people feel about that.
Restrictions, we can,
Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want to reserve judgment until we get to the end of the interviews?
Doesn't really matter to me.
I mean, I think sometimes it's very helpful to have discussion
oh, no, it would be
as
discussion.
opposed to just a vote.
Oh, no, we would
Oh,
have
we will have,
discussion.
we will have the discussion,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay.
But the actual vote for the candidates. And are we going to be happy with a simple majority of 4 votes to move the candidate? From here, we would, I assume, we will pick a candidate tonight to move forward for the selectmen's approval.
And I was incorrect. They are meeting this coming Monday. I thought it was the following Monday.
I just wanted to be sure,
So-
to make sure that we were on the agenda.
Yes.
Obviously, we have been without a director for a while. We want to move this along as long as people are comfortable with the decision that we make. Any discussion about that?
I do have one question. And as far as, my understanding is that no references at this point have been checked. That's only done when we move the final candidate,
No,
or is that not true?
I can clarify that. I received references, Rebecca Oldham checked the references of both candidates coming forward. They are incomplete. One of the candidates, we were waiting for all of the people that the person put forward, got back in touch. So it's an incomplete set of references, but I have those. I can send them down now, or we can wait until after the candidate. Probably would be wise to have them now,
So we can have a chance to.
so you can have a chance to look and make notes. So it is two-sided, one candidate on each side.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's unfortunate, no response.
Any discussion about the references? Any discussion about voting process?
You
I
look
was
like you have
thinking.
something. Oh, okay.
Which is unusual.
Okay, we have till 6 o'clock for the first interview, correct? Right. So instead of the other, these are just little tidy end things that have nothing to do with this particular evening's main focus. Just that, a reminder that our next meeting is February 18th here at 9:30 a.m. And that next week on Wednesday is our budget meeting, or our meeting with the finance board. And I wanted to know how many of you are interested in attending, because if we have more than 3, it's considered a quorum of our board, and we'd have to post
I'll
that
post it.
meeting. So I'm going.
Yeah, it's Tuesday at 5, right?
No,
Is that
it's Wednesday, February 1st.
Wednesday at 5?
Wednesday.
Oh, that's right,
February
Wednesday's the 1st, right?
1st.
Okay.
Yes,
I was planning on going.
okay. And I'm going.
Budget meeting?
I
Anyone
have it
else?
on my calendar, but if someone else would prefer.
Well, we can post the meeting. The more the merrier, I think, if anyone else wants to come,
I'll go.
okay? So the 3 of us, so we don't really need to post that meeting unless someone changes their mind. I would need to know by Monday before 5 o'clock to post that meeting, so, which is on Wednesday. Okay, thank you. And also, oh, that was it. Oh, and the little note card that I forgot to send last time at our meeting, it's just a thank you from Nisha for her gift. So, did you get it?
Yes,
We
I'll-
all saw it, tape it to the meeting, to the minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not,
Okay.
yeah, it got lost in all my paperwork. Okay, well, anything else before we start? We probably went through that pretty quickly. It didn't take us long.
I think I have a preference for paper ballots.
Okay, so we could take that, oh, Barbara's not here right now,
I mean, that would be my top preference. But,
and we are allowed to do that. I brought enough paper. Everyone can just put
thank you
their,
for your provisioning.
well, I figured we could be sitting here tearing up papers or something, and that wouldn't be good. In case we decided that. Should wait till Barbara comes back, or is she out waiting for the,
The
Candidate.
candidate has arrived,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and
can we start earlier?
it's up to the board if we were ready to start. We can vote after the interviews as to how we're
On the
going
ballot?
to,
Okay.
when the
On what
whole
type
board
of-
is sitting here.
That's a good
That's
idea.
what I would suggest we do.
Okay.
So are we ready?
Everybody ready? You ready with your question, Deb? You're first.
You ready with your
question?
Yeah, I'm first, yeah.
Now, we don't know what we go out with.
I'll go. Well, either way.
Okay, so I need 2,
Number 3. You're number 4.
Are they in the
Yeah.
back?
but I only need
Just
3
follow up.
if I feel the question was unanswered. Correctly. I've
Yes.
never done this before. Okay.
Public, just so you know, public comment will be held after both interviews. We'll have a chance for public comment if anyone here would like to say anything. Thank you for coming. So this is Sean Cass.
Clear the desk.
Oh, really?
I know, I read that and I went, oh, that's interesting. He graduated from Salem High School and so did I. So there you go. So there you go.
Members of the board, Sean Cass.
Hi.
Good evening, Sean.
Nice to see you.
We've met before.
Yes, we have. I've met some of you, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so Sean, what we're going to do, we're being televised.
Okay.
And each one of our, this is the board. We can introduce ourselves, but we also have our board names in case you would like to know. So we start down there.
Okay, my name is Deb Stevenson, and I'm relatively new to the board. I just joined it in November, so this is new to me, too. Very glad to have you here tonight.
Okay, next.
Are we going to do all the introductions first, or as we?
I think so,
yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Marie Waller. I'm a member of the board. I haven't been a member for that long, but I'm enjoying it.
Good.
She was on the search committee, too.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Obvious.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Irene Thomas, and I'm a member of the board and the secretary, and Marie and I have started together on the board 2 years ago.
Okay, great.
I'm Linda Brown. I'm also a brand new member of the board, and I welcome you.
Thank you.
Barbara, also a member of the board in November, so a lot of us are new, but I was on the search committee as well.
And I'm Laurel Pahalski, and I am the chairman of the board. I've been on the board off and on for, I want to say 8 years. I'm not quite sure, because we, at the time, we had term limits that we had to go off and then come back on. But welcome again.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Glad to meet, you made it here.
Yes.
And Sean, we've met. I was the chairperson of the search committee, and my name is Larry McElhenney. And you have an opening statement for us.
I do. First, I just want to say thank you so much for having me back. I feel very grateful. I'm honored to be asked back, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you all this evening and sharing with you my experience and my perspective on the role and approach to the role. And I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right. I have some prepared questions for you.
Okay.
All right, we'll jump. I'm first. Why do you think you're a good match for this job?
I think I'm a good match for a couple of reasons. Historically, my experience has been in financial services, specifically in marketing. But fortunately or unfortunately, however one would choose to look at it, I started my career at a very entry-level position, and over the course of 16 years worked my way up. And in the process of doing that, I think the reason I was able to do that is because I developed a reputation as somebody who was very engaging and very collaborative, and somebody who really loved people. And over the course of those 16 years, I developed a lot of skills that I think are transferable to this role. And I spent a lot of time developing teams, developing programs in the financial services industry, and really spending time with, getting to know the teams and spending a lot of time focused on really getting folks to look at their work and look at what we did and what we do differently and kind of understanding what their contribution is to that work. And really, I would love to use that experience in a way that is really impactful at the local level. I come from a very large family. My grandmother just turned 91. And I think the other part of that is, I think the work is really important. And so I think matching the experience that I have with kind of my passion for the work, I think is a really good marriage. Fortunately, my family is very large and very engaged, and I see the benefit of that. She sees the benefit of that. Having people around, having family members look after her, support her, make sure that she has what she needs. But I also know that there are a lot of families that don't have that, the benefit of that. And I think the COA, and in particular the senior centers, can really fill that void in a lot of ways. And so I think it's important to have the right people in place to make sure that you have the skill set and the personality and kind of the sense of how important that work is and what really the impact is of that work, to be able to do that. And so for me, it's really just it's a marriage of my professional experience and then my passion. And so that's really why I think I would be a good fit. And I'm also really good at leading teams and building relationships and getting people together, bringing people together for a common goal and getting stuff done, most importantly. So.
Now, obviously, we're here to understand how you would fit and how we view you as a fit. How will you know that you've made the right decision if you were to be offered this position? What's going to tell you that is the right choice for you?
The work itself is the main driver. I think a community of this size, similar to Merrimack where I live, I think this work becomes more important because in a larger city with other resources and things like that, a senior center, a COA, is really impactful in a town of this size. Because in some cases, in a lot of cases, and I'll say we as if I'm already here, so forgive me, we are the only link to those resources in a lot of cases. And so, to me, it really is, am I going to be able to make an impact for me? That's really what it is. And I know that there's been a lot of change and a lot of turnover in the last year. And I have a lot of experience with that, kind of getting folks back on track and bringing people together. And so to me, kind of making that impact, and having the community say, this is helpful, this is making an impact, this is allowing me to do X, Y, or Z. I will feel that every day, as I work. I'm Italian, I talk a lot with my hands. I'm sorry.
French do too, though.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so as you think about your time working with and for seniors, tell us about a professional accomplishment that you're proud of. And then tell us about a time when you felt disappointed that you did not accomplish a goal.
To take your first question, a time when I felt proud, one of the things that I think is really important is listening in this role, and really assessing situations. And I think that that's very important. And I spent a lot of time when I was in Merrimack, kind of developing some new programs. And I think, to me, that's a fairly easy thing to do. I have a lot of experience with event work and developing new programs, and I'm very analytical and I have a good operation side of me, I'm also very creative as well. So that piece really comes easy to me. But I think listening and really understanding what people want and what they need, I think is very important. And, sometimes it's not necessarily taking something and not doing it. It's very easy to come in and say, oh, we're not doing any of this anymore, or, what have you. Sometimes it's tweaking what's already there. And so a good example of that is during the pandemic, everybody wanted to travel, and we just couldn't. It wasn't safe for anybody to travel. It wasn't safe for us to travel. And so I implemented virtual travel. I got with a program so that the community members could come in and virtually travel to places all over the world. And they were live, and we were live, and they could ask the tour guide questions, and it was very customizable and for our center and things like that. And so I think kind of getting folks to understand that maybe, travel as you might know it, is not really on the table because of the pandemic, but kind of introducing a different variation of the same concept and seeing people. At first, people didn't understand it because we had to do a lot of grassroots efforts to explain what it was because it was hard to put that out in a flyer. And so once the word got out and you saw people interact with different cultures and sometimes their own culture, and sometimes if we went to Italy, and so we had some folks who were of Italian descent, to kind of see them really embrace that and get excited, I think was really great. And again, we didn't not do something, it was just a slight tweak to something that we had already done. So I think that's really great. And I think that's just listening to what we're hearing. We want to get out of the house. We want to travel. We want to get back to normal. That was really important. And we couldn't deliver that for them. But what we could do is we could do this. And I think it was really satisfying to see people sign up. Add me to the next one, before they would even leave the building, be leaving. And we would we would always give them either a a token or food item. I like to eat, so oftentimes I would push for food. We would give them food from that region of the world. So it was really nice. It was really interactive, and it was nice to see them kind of come to life and get to experience something that, in a lot of cases, I mean, who has the time or the money to go to Italy or, Amsterdam or something like that. So I think that was really good. And I think just maybe professionally, a time when I wasn't able to do that, I think sometimes, my goal always is to have folks understand what their contribution is to the goal. I think it's important to have clear goals. As a director, I would set clear goals and kind of a vision, and I would try to bring everybody on board to execute that vision. It's not necessarily about me, and I'm not going to be able to do it on my own. So I think it's disappointing sometimes when there's always someone that you can't get on the bus. I think that's really disappointing to me when that happens, especially when the work is either fun or important. I think that does happen from time to time, and sometimes you have to have, a conversation to say, look, maybe this isn't the best fit, right? And no one loves to have that conversation with anybody, but sometimes it happens. And I've had various situations over 16 years, and I would love to say that I got everybody on the bus all the time. That was not the case. But the rare instance where that happened, to me, I took that very personally because my work is very personal to me. So, to not be able to do that is something that would really stick with me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you to describe your vision of an inclusive COA.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps some strategies that you have used or that you have thought about using in order to include those people who may need some services but are reluctant to step forward and take advantage of them. The ultimate goal would be that anybody, any senior in Groveland would walk away saying, oh, I felt seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important, and I'll tell you how I will start doing that. The first thing that I would do, and I've always done this historically, because I think it's important. If I were lucky enough to get the role, I would start by meeting with as many people in the community as I could, be it hosting a formal coffee and donuts, again, the food, I love food, something like that. I think getting different avenues together you'll hear me say the word engagement a lot, and that's having myself engaged, having the board engaged, having the community engaged. It's not one thing, but how I will start is I will listen to what has worked, what hasn't worked, where the center was before the pandemic, where it is today, in light of some of the changes that have happened, and where people thought then where it was going. And I think change is really hard for anybody, and it's particularly hard for people as they get older. And so I would start there. And I think I would really listen to what their concern is. Because if somebody doesn't feel like I'm approachable or we as a center are approachable, then they're not going to get, and I do know in certain situations, personally where, folks would not come in because they, didn't want to be associated with old people. I heard that a lot, right? Or they just, didn't felt comfortable coming in. And I think spending time understanding kind of where it was, where it is, and kind of where we can take it, I think is really important. And really using that time to form a vision and figure out where the opportunities are. I think sometimes it might be a survey. Sometimes it might be just everyday interactions. I think outreach is really important. I know that there's an outreach position that's posted. I think that's hugely important. because all of these different, I call them vehicles, all of these different vehicles are going to give me, as the director, the information that I need to make decisions. So, and I would love to say that I need to do this and only this, but sometimes I have to do something that's unique to the community or unique to the makeup of the community. So what I may have done in Merrimack may not work in Groveland, or what they're doing in Beverly may not actually work here. So I think listening is really important. Keeping an open door is really important. I want people to feel like that they can come to a program if they want to come to a program. They can come for a blood pressure clinic if they need to have their blood pressure done. But I also want people to feel like they can stop by and have a cup of coffee. It's that kind of place, and that's okay. Because if and when the time comes that they really need something, a service, then I'm going to rely on my relationship with them and their relationship with the staff, and I'm going to work with the staff to cultivate those types of relationships with the community to do that. The other thing that I think is important is looking at the departments around the town. So the chief of police, the fire department, other departments within the municipality, really working with them to make sure that there's a lot of engagement and synergy between all of us, so that if they identify somebody who needs something, right, that they have the relationship with me as the director and my staff to pick up the phone and say, I just want to talk to you about this. We had this the other day. Let's work together and figure out a solution. I think that that's really important. It's never one thing. It's always, multiple things kind of coming together. And I think what that speaks to is that level of engagement, right? So my being engaged, kind of towing the line and saying to the staff and showing the staff the level of engagement that's needed, that's required, particularly if you have a population of seniors who are older, kind of on the older end, than say 60 or just 65. Think about generationally kind of what the differences are and what is needed. So to me, that's really important. I would rely on the board. I mean, the board, friends, everyone's an extension to me of the center and of the COA. And so I would build the relationships to ensure that I had those eyes and ears where I couldn't necessarily be all the time, so that when something came up, they know enough to come to me and say, we need to work together and figure this out. To me, that's the ideal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm next. Small towns have limited resources. If there was a program that you believed was critical to offer to the Groveland seniors, and there was no money in the budget to cover it, what steps would you take to provide the programs?
Depending on what the program was, and depending on, kind of whether if it was kind of entertainment in nature versus, service in nature, I think the first thing that I would do is I would look at gathering a case, numbers, number of attendees, number of events. I'm hoping, and if that's not the case, then certainly I would love to get this in the works, that my senior center is actively being used, because, to me, that's the base for capturing all of the data that you need in order to kind of start your case for all of that. I would start pulling that together, as well as the benefits, kind of the pros and cons of, pros of keeping it, the cons on what happens if it goes away. And I would use that to, work with the friends, or look for a grant, or, work with tap into the various resources that I would have, the fundraising resources that I would have, in order to kind of keep the program going. But the first step is to really kind of give those resources, whomever you go to, an accurate picture of why this is important and what benefit this carries for the town. And so much of whether or not you can get dollars, whether it be from a grant or just from fundraising by contacting local businesses in town and working with friends or what have you, is really in that case. Did you make that case? Years ago, I handed to somebody in my prior life something that I wanted funded. The case wasn't made very well, and I knew that was my lesson. If the case is made well up front, then because it was very much warranted, but looking back on it very quickly, I realized the case wasn't made. So to me, it would be getting my ducks in a row for that. So
Describe a grant writing experience from applying to managing it.
we did a grant. I was part of a grant process in Merrimack not too long before I finished up there, which we did get, and it was specifically focused around entertainment and socialization post-pandemic. So how do you kind of re-engage the community, specifically the community that is not coming out and taking advantage of programs and resources? I was not there to see it all the way, the money all the way spent, but what I do know and what we had done in the past for grants that were already in flight when I started is when you apply for the grant is very much like when I was in the corporate world. You had to answer very specific questions about the dollars, and the dollars had to be used specifically for that reason. And then you would build the programs based on that. Same thing in Merrimack. Build the programs based on that. Capture everything in my senior center. The numbers, the engagement, the number of events, the dollars spent, attendees, invites, and then anecdotally, what it did, how it worked. And we would prepare that package and send that both in Merrimack and in my previous life, kind of the results of that. And the grant is the same thing. We had a huge challenge in Merrimack when I first started. Nobody was using, with the exception of one person, my senior center. So we weren't getting credit where credit was due, so to speak. So our goal first was to make sure that folks were using that, understood the need for that, so that when we got the grant, and we had grants that we had in flight, that they were managed very specifically to what the grant's intentions were. And then we captured the data, and then we packaged that up and sent it back when the time was needed. We had a couple of grants in flight, and then, like I said, I applied for one not long before I left, and we did get that. It was about $13,000 for that. And that's typically how we had done all of them. I had to kind of put that structure in place so that folks understood, I'm not asking you to do this extra work, right? There's a reason that I'm asking for this. It's because it's going to help us get funding. It's going to help justify the case for why we need the dollars and kind of what happened with it. And once they understood that and they saw that, right, because we had other grants that were in flight, and they saw the wrap up and they saw the results of that, that kind of picture started to emerge. It was like, oh, that's why, that this is really important. That is not unlike working for a bank. When you ask for money, you have to show that what you did, what you spent, what you did, what you got. And if you didn't get a good return on investment, I know my parents think that it's a bank and they just give out money willy-nilly. That was never the case. You didn't get your money the next year if you didn't spend your money the way that it was supposed to be spent. So, and you didn't get the money if you didn't do what you needed to do with it, similar to a grant. If you don't accomplish what the grant is hoping to accomplish and you show that, then you don't get it.
Thank you. Tell us about a challenging human resource issue with which you've dealt as a supervisor, including the challenge, your actions, and the outcome.
Sure. So in my prior life, I grew the team quite a bit. I had an original team that I had, and then I was asked to take on some additional team members. And I probably would have thought that I would have had challenges with the folks that were new to me. That wasn't the case. Once we became a much larger team, I had somebody who had been with us for a long time, who was used to doing things a particular way, and really was resistant to change. And unfortunately, that resistance to change came out in ways that, because they were very frustrated. And so that person took that frustration out on a vendor. And I it came, as often these things do, it made its way back to me. And so I had to address that because I view, similar to a board or the friends, the vendors in my corporate world were like an extension of my team. Without them, I couldn't get anything done. And so I really kind of approached the work and approached working with them as if they were really no different than anybody on my team. So if they were treating that vendor that way, to me, they were treating our teammates that way. You know, they're part of us. They're an extension of us. And then the other part was they're also a reflection of me. So you're representing me and the team when you go out into the world. And if you're taking your frustrations out on a vendor and not behaving appropriately, that's reflecting poorly on me. I had to address it. This person had been with the company for a lot of years, and I had to write them up. And it was harder for me to have to do that than it was for them to hear it, because I knew this person. I had worked with this person before in my travels, you know, in my career. I had worked with them in some way, shape, or form. The world kind of changed and things evolved, and then eventually I became their manager. And so I was a little surprised that this was the case, but, you know, I had to do it. And I had to really, you know, educate them on kind of looking at this a very different way, right? And I think part of that is change is hard, and sometimes you have to not necessarily change everything, but evolve how you do things. And the frustration of evolving really got the best of her, and that's how it came out. And I could not address it, and unfortunately, the commentary was severe enough that it warranted, you know, that I had to have something formal in her, mostly because I really wanted her to know that, like, this was it, right? This was it. This is not acceptable. And I also think that it's important for folks to understand that, you know, that while you're asking one person to do this, you're asking everybody to do this. I wasn't asking anything of her that I wasn't asking anybody else, or frankly, that was being asked of me. So the fact that it was taken that way and coming out in that way, I think, you know, I think I know for sure she eventually got it. I made her call and apologize. And I also had the conversation in person. She was not somebody who was in my city at the time. I managed people all over the country. I set up a teleconference on the screen. We had the conversation. I wanted to see her face to face. I wanted to sit and have that conversation. And so that's how I did it. Both, again, fortunately or unfortunately, in 16 years, I've been faced with a lot of HR situations, so nothing really surprises me, unfortunately. So it happens. Yep.
And the second part of the question, tell us about a conflict between yourself and another person in the workplace and how you managed it. You kind of touched on some of that.
I think, I don't know that it was necessarily a conflict, but I knew that it was going to be a challenge. Several years ago, during the financial recession, the big recession that happened around 2008, 2009, I was asked to take on some work to basically duplicate a marketing team over here, right? So away from the rest of the company, in an effort to support foreclosure prevention. The difference was, in every other position that I held, my team was responsible for events and coming up with the event and executing the event from end to end, and doing all of the marketing and what have you. The big difference, because it was already in play and folks didn't want to necessarily ruffle any feathers, was my team was not responsible for the actual event. So my team in that particular case was, the only job that I had was I had to get them there. That was my job. Once they got there, I had nothing to do with it, so to speak, right? So the business partner who was managing that work, that large piece of that work, knew that they had asked me to come and do this work, and knew that I had experiencing managing hundreds of events. And initially, right out of the gate, she put the hammer down and basically was like, stay out of it, right? My whole approach was, I have more than enough on my plate to get people to show up to this event. There's more than enough for me to do in that space. I just want you to know that I do have this experience, and if you need it, I'm here. But my focus is not to take your job and not to take over this work, because right now, my job is to get everybody to show up. And that immediately broke the ice, and she started to settle down just a little bit. And then I proceeded to do the work at hand. And when it became very clear that you could not do my part of the work and her part of the work without bringing that together, when that time came, because I was so focused on understanding what it is that I needed to do to get them to show up, when I approached her 3 months later and said, this is what I'm finding, and there's no way that we really can be successful and keep this the way that it is. So inevitably, it's gonna have to be one big cohesive thing. It was fine. And had I, came in and said, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, it wouldn't have gone well. But my focus was, I'm gonna be over here because I need to figure out why they're not coming to you, or why they're not showing up to centers for help, and what the issue is. And, she's the type of person today that if she were to see me, she gives me a big hug and a kiss. So, if you heard the first conversation we had, that wasn't necessarily on my mind that was ever going to happen. And so it's nice to see that. But you have to, there's ways of kind of approaching that sort of thing. Again, I want people to understand that, it's a collaboration, it's not a hostile takeover, right? So it's really important in situations like that to come in. And I used what I was working on, my portion, I used that in my findings to say, look, here's everything that I found. There's no way that we can do what we've always done. So I need your help with your team to adjust over here, because what I've learned is when they show up, we need to do different things over here, and that's on your side of the house.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let you take a breath.
Okay,
I know, sorry, we don't have any water.
Yeah.
that's okay.
Are you okay?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good.
We did.
If you could invite any one person to be here and speak on your behalf, who would it be? And why would you choose that person?
It would probably be the executive that I had for a large portion of my career at Bank of America. And the reason is, the big joke that I would always say is, people would say, well, what do you do? And I say, I do whatever I'm told. Because if he needed something or needed help in a particular area, and I didn't realize this at the time until much further into my career, if he needed something, he would kind of pull me and do that. So it would probably be him. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying it because I think it's a compliment of the type of work that I do and my character, which is the only job that I applied for during my career at Bank of America was the very first one. Every other position and role and title, I never applied for it. It was given to me over the course of earning it. And he had a large part of that in terms of he was around quite a bit. And he was also the gentleman who said, can you come over here, and do this. He was also the gentleman who, when that work was done, and I had to come back to the mothership, as it were, there needed to be a spot for me in order for me to come back. And so when that work was ramping down, in my mind, I was thinking, well, I have to find a job because this work is coming to an end. And I was networking and meeting with people, and he said to me, can you set up a one-on-one every week, for the next several months? And I said, okay. And he would say, who did you meet with this week? And so I would tell him, he'd say, okay, keep me posted. He was kind of a man of few words, but he's still the one that I would bring here. And every week we would meet, and he'd say, who did you meet with this week? And I'd say, well, here's what, okay, keep me posted. And then eventually he said, what about this? And this being what ended up being the last 6 years of my time there. And I said, yeah, I'll think about that, yeah. And then I would meet with other folks, and then the next week he'd say, but what about this? And so after a few weeks of that, I finally said to him, is there something you need me to do? And he said, yes, just, can you sit tight? And I said, well, I'm concerned because I need to have a job. He said, you have a job, just sit tight. Go take a vacation, is what he said. So I sat tight, and when it was appropriate, I was brought back, and that was the team that I managed for the last 16 years. And it's because he trusted that I could get done what he needed to get done. And I also wasn't afraid to say to him, I don't think this is the right idea, right? So he would often ask people questions and know the answer or know what he wanted and kind of use it as an opportunity to figure out, is this person going to just tell me what I want to hear, or are they going to? So, he liked that, that I would come to him and say, and I did. And when I came back and I got that role that started in 2014, I realized very quickly that we had some very sticky situations, and there was some things that were going on that were not really the best things that needed to be going on. And it took my going to him and saying, I just want you to know that these things are going on and they need to be fixed. And he said, whatever you need to do to fix them is what you need to do to fix them. They just need to be fixed. And so he had that trust because I had developed that kind of reputation and that relationship with him to say that, he's going to do what I need him to do. And sometimes I had to go to him and say, you're not going to like it. This isn't going to be what you want to hear, but this is what we need to do. And he'd say, okay, go do it. And similar, when he pulled me over, he pulled me into the meeting to brief me on that work over here. And I left the meeting and I said, he said, what do you think? And I said, I have a splitting headache. And he said, oh, good. That's how I felt the first time I met with them. So you'll do it, right? And so, so we had developed this really great relationship. And I think, he would speak to many facets of kind of my ability and my personality. Because as he would probably say if he was standing here, he put me into some crazy things. So, and I came out alive. So.
I was going to ask what 3 things would he say about you, but I think you just answered that question. What would he say, or maybe someone else, that what area that you maybe would need to work on?
I think one of the things.
Doesn't have to be him, it can be
Sure.
somebody else.
I think I've heard this from time to time. I'm not very political. I'm not a very. In terms of. I really believe in you do the right thing, and when you do the right thing, if it's the right thing, then everybody will be fine with it. Because at the end of the day, if somebody has a political agenda, if it's not the right thing on behalf of whoever you're serving, then it's going to be really hard, I think, for somebody to battle that. But I have heard that from time to time. Early in my career, I had a manager say to me, you probably won't be very successful because you're not very political. And I said, well, because I'm not. I will support somebody in what they're trying to do, but I certainly will not do something and do something else, not do something that's right in an effort to do something else that satisfies some sort of, political agenda. Yeah. And so I probably could be a little bit more political. And I think probably the other thing that I would hear is I am Italian, and so I tend to be very expressive. And so sometimes my face will give away something, I don't have a poker face. So if I'm like, goodness, this is the craziest thing, sometimes it's all over my face that I feel that way. So
Me too.
So sometimes people will say, the joke that people would say to me in my, a friend of mine we'd be on a conference call on camera and he'd say, fix your face, because sometimes I'd be like, this is crazy. I'm very honest, so,
I like that.
yeah, I'm very
That's what we
honest.
like. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, if you're very honest, you're going to have a hard time becoming more political.
I know, I know.
That's true.
So if you are hired as director, you're aware that we've been going through some transition in Groveland and the COA. What steps would you take to promote the COA as positive, welcoming, and a supportive place?
I think there's a lot of value in making sure that everyone understands the services that are offered, regardless of everything that else that's going on. And I think if I'm lucky enough to be chosen in this particular time period when things are the way that they are, I think, to me, it's important that I convey a sense of stability and consistency once I get here. All those things that go on, hiring, if there's positions that are open, it happens. And they happen for a variety of reasons, and some of them are great because people are moving on to other things, and sometimes they're not so great things. So to me, it's important to focus on the services and the programming and keeping that level of engagement up with the staff that we have. Because it is a positive place. I think it is. And I think the tone of what the place becomes is set by me. And I think that is easily can be done regardless of whether or not, there are gaps and kind of holes in other positions that are going on. Because at the end of the day, even when they are filled in a position like this, everybody has a hand in everything. So, if I'm the director, and I know there's an assistant director, we do programs, we're part outreach, we're part transportation, we're part mail gatherer, we're part mail preparer. I mean, it's all hands on deck when you have a small staff like that, and particularly in this environment. And so I think it's kind of it's a reset. Let's reset and appreciate where it was and the work that was put into, a longtime director, and a lot of folks that have stepped up in the interim and had a food pantry expanded and, grants were provided and things like that. I mean, everybody has stepped up. And so I think it's somewhat of a reset and kind of an appreciation for everybody that has kind of stepped in to keep everything going. But I think I wasn't here. Don't really, I'm here now. I can't really do anything about a year ago or 6 months ago. So my job is going to be making sure that everyone feels that they can trust me, that I'm engaged, that I'm going to work hard, and that I'm going to support them. And I think just staying focused on providing the services and sharing what the services are and making sure the community understands what the services are. You don't want that to get lost in some of the other things that may have been inadvertently put out there. And it happens in a small town. But I think it'll be kind of resetting that tone, I think, is going to be really important.
What have you had, what else would you like us to know about you?
I do have a dog, and I do sometimes come in with hair on my clothes. I can't really do anything about that. So oftentimes, if I come into work, somebody says, "You have hair all over your sweater." I know. It's just, it is what it is. He comes with me everywhere. So, I am excited, and I'm eager to get started if I'm lucky enough to be chosen. I would be thrilled to be able to use my experience in a way that can make an impact in the community. And I also like to have fun. So my goal will be to make sure that operationally and fiscally we're in a good place, that we have some structure, that we have some consistency, so that we can focus on the real work at hand and have a little bit of fun and getting everybody together.
That's good. If you are selected, when would you be able to begin?
Tomorrow. I can start as soon as possible. Yeah, I can start as soon as we're, you know, I don't know if there's I know that there's some background checks. I don't know if there's a,
The process would be,
Yeah.
we are the appointing board. but
Okay.
It gets okayed by the selectmen.
Yeah.
So we would
Yep.
have to wait.
I
for
can
that.
start however soon all of that takes to facilitate itself.
Town
Yeah.
administrator.
Right,
and
right.
all that's-
Yeah,
We just,
right,
you
Right,
and see
right.
what happens.
right. Yeah, I can, and I don't know if there's like a medical, physical, I had to do that at Merrimack, so, you know,
You're not personal,
whatever.
so I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay.
But
Whatever,
You're available.
I'm
you don't have to give
available.
notice
That's
everywhere
right,
or anything.
that's right. Yep, I'm available for however long it takes to do that.
And finally, do you have any questions for us?
I do have one question. In my research, I did notice that there were a lot of new board members, and so there's a good mix, I think, in terms of tenure. Have you all, I know you've been very busy and there's been a lot of change, but have you all come together at any point and talked about kind of what your vision is? You know, what you would like to see from the next director and what you would like to have happen?
Well, you want me
Go
to take it?
ahead.
Well, two words that come to my mind are, we have talked about the fact that we are looking for somebody who's positive and productive and gets along well with people and actually reads the situation both analytically and creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That's me.
And I think the other thing that we've been focused on is the need for outreach
Yes.
into the community. And I think all of us kind of have a feeling that there are a lot of seniors in town that may not be, that we're not reaching. And I think that's very important to us, is how do we reach that community? And what is it that they need? So I think we're really, hopefully I'm speaking for everyone,
Yes.
is we're looking for someone to help guide that, that outreach, to guide and help us. You know, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And, you know, what are the seniors in Groveland missing today? And how can we best, as a council on aging and a board, provide that?
And I think sometimes it might mean going where they are, right? So leaving the building and, you know, in Merrimack, we have a couple of different communities, over 65 communities, you know, going out. And I know that one of the questions that I would ask, I know that the outreach position is posted, and I see the requirements there and kind of the experience that's needed. But one of the questions that I would ask anybody interviewing for that role is, tell me what your position is and what your view is of outreach. Because I've been on phone calls with many social workers where I can tell they're going through a checklist. And that's fine, but, you know, it's a very different time post-pandemic, and sometimes we have to, you know, leave the building and kind of think outside the box and go to where people are. In addition to the table stakes, which is the phone calls and, you know, the things like that. So I would be really interested in hearing from somebody who was interviewing, you know, if I were chosen and part of that process, I would like to know what their view is of that. Because I think outreach is really important, really, really important. And I'm sure we're not getting reaching folks that we need. And so you have to go where they are and also understand why they're not coming in, and then figuring out, do we have the ability at the center and within the COA to address and overcome what it is that they're feeling. And sometimes it's approachability, right? Being approachable. And
Just so you know, we have just hired an interim outreach worker or
Okay.
coordinator who is, you know, it's a part-time position.
sure, yep,
And she's actually our substitute van driver, so she does know a lot of the people.
Okay.
And has
Great.
visited a lot.
and I see that there was a van position that was just
And there's a
posted.
van
Right,
driver.
yeah.
So she's the substitute van
Okay.
driver, which means she's doing a lot of substitute driving, because that van driver is missing
Right,
from
so
those
she's
good
doing a lot.
She's got many hats, but very part-time. I mean,
Okay.
We work 19
Right.
hours.
Yep,
in
yep.
Both jobs.
Yes.
Combined.
Right.
And so as a result, what's been happening is we
Yes.
have some wonderful workers in our pantry who have been fielding a couple of the questions, which we're not prepared to do.
Right.
We're not outreach workers, but the pantry is going strong. And that's another focus on us is to, focus we have is to, I don't know if you heard in the very beginning, one of our goals for this year is to make sure that not only for the seniors, but that we reach people in the community who are experiencing food insecurity, because that food pantry is for everyone. It's not just for seniors. So that, and it's fairly new, because we've we've been able to enlarge it, and we really want to get the word out for that. And also communication. I mean, we do newsletters, but how else can we reach the people? So, yeah, that's one of our focuses.
One other thing I wanted to mention was that no board, no group operates as an island. We all have to work with everybody else in the town.
That's
And
right.
you had mentioned the police, the fire,
Yes.
everybody else.
Exactly.
But it's also, it's everybody in this building, it's everybody in every other function, that we all need to work together as a team to accomplish our
Without
goal.
question. Without
And
question.
not have, division. If there's a problem, if there's an issue, let's sit down and talk about it.
And I think part of that you can overcome part of that if there's a vision and there's a plan. Because then when everybody sees that and understands it and you have buy-in, then we can talk about, here's how I need help doing this. I can't do all of this myself. So I think having that kind of foundation and visually having it laid out, I think would be very helpful, especially in a time like this, to say, here's where we are and here's where we're going, and we're not going to get everything done that we would love to get done in the first 90 days, but I think maybe in the first 90 days, these are the things that we need to focus on and make sure that everybody understands it and is excited about it and feels like they can contribute. I think when you don't have that, it becomes a little bit muddy, and then it just tends to not be very nice. So.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It's great to
Wonderful interview.
see some of you again and to meet some new faces as well.
Yeah, Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to get Bonnie.
Yep. Oh,
Stuck
he's
on
gonna
something.
go.
Oh, okay.
What kind of dog?
I was thinking the same thing. I wonder what kind of dog. We're going to have discussion now,
Sitting outside.
so,
It's a combination
no, we have, well,
beagle and
I think it has to stay open meeting, so, yeah.
German Shepherd.
No, we're not going to sit here until 7 and just,
It's a rescue dog.
okay.
He's had it since it was 4 months old. He's now 9.
Oh, wait, what?
Wow.
We're talking about his rescue dog.
Oh, his
We're
rescue
outside. What did he say? Part
The best
beagle and
kind.
part German
Best
Shepherd? Yeah, so you
Oh,
can
that's
imagine.
weird.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Strange combo when she was
And he got him
baby.
as a rescue, and he's now 9 and goes everywhere with him, and his name is Ethan. We were about
What's
to
his
ask
name?
for a picture
What is
when
the
the
name?
came out.
What's his name?
Ethan.
Ethan the dog.
Ethan.
Yeah, we'll get a picture.
Okay, so, anyone have any comments?
When we discuss, are we allowed to talk about things
Barbara,
that
can
we
you-
gleaned from our other interviews with the search committee, or is that not allowable?
I see
anybody know?
no reason why not. If you found it was something that ties in with what we discussed this evening, or, something he didn't mention that I found, I don't think that
I think
is,
in the interest of everybody making an informed decision that
right.
Okay.
If there was something that you really, but I have to
Yeah,
tell you this wonderful
there
thing
was.
about him,
There definitely was, because, you ask different questions and they give different answers, but one of the things that really struck us was he talked about, he's not the type of person that sits behind his desk 8 hours a day. He's out there in the community. If someone has a response, a question that requires a response, rather than put a letter in the mail, he takes the letter to that person's house and sits down and has a cup of coffee with them. So what do you need, besides this? How else can I help you? And he said that the fire chief or something had notified him that this person had a live Christmas tree up like 3 months after Christmas, which was a fire hazard. So he called him up and he said, when can I come over and help you take down your Christmas tree? And he's very approachable, very reachable, and that was one thing that really impressed us about him.
See, and that's something we didn't ask.
Right, that didn't come
Or
out.
it didn't come out.
Tonight,
And he
yeah.
was probably, knowing that he's already mentioned these things, not repeating, or
Yeah,
whatever.
plus it
So,
just,
yeah.
we had asked a particular
different
question, I
type of
think, where
question,
that, yeah,
right.
really came out.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other comments?
You're thinking, Irene, huh?
Irene's thinking, how do
I
they
say. I know this is making a huge assumption, but I just got the impression from him that he begins every day thinking, well, how can I contribute today? And probably ends the day saying, how did I contribute today? What more could I do tomorrow? Take down someone's Christmas tree.
I really, the one word he said so often during this interview was being engaged.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
yeah.
And, yeah, building relationships, leading teams. I mean, this is what we need in a director. We need someone to pull everything together,
Yeah.
move forward, collaborate. Also like the fact that he can work ASAP. So, yeah.
But I think other key words were extension, passion,
Yes.
definitely engagement, and setting the tone. He's very aware that what he says and what he does, how he reacts and how he allows people to approach him will all set the tone.
And listening.
Listening, yeah.
Listening was another key word he was using too.
Yeah,
Right.
Not just listening and doing nothing about it.
No, moving with the, yeah,
Moving with
moving
the
on with it, right. That was a good interview.
Very good question.
very dedicated to outreach, clearly. Bravo.
That's another thing I liked too, that he said, was that they all do outreach, they all do everything.
All
When
hands
they-
on deck.
All hands on
Yeah.
deck, doesn't matter, well, my job description says,
I know.
yep,
I liked that too.
wear the many hats.
Yeah, we're a team.
Right.
Team building, team
Yeah.
working together, which I think has to happen
That's what,
in a small COA.
Yeah, because you need
that's the guy
everybody.
he was talking about.
I
Do
wonder
we-
if he's aware
Oh.
that this, you don't have a senior center like this.
I know.
is the only-
Yeah.
Well, I think he kept trying to correct
They
himself.
should have asked.
That
I
did
think
come
he's
up.
aware.
It
He's
did
done
come
his
up.
research.
He brought
He
that
did.
up at the
He did.
last
Oh, he
meeting.
did?
He asked if there was a dedicated space, and we explained that there is not, like a specific senior center
He
separate
might
from
be
here.
able to get us one.
Well,
Yeah,
we
I
did
was
talk
thinking
about
that.
being,
Don't hold your
you know,
breath.
somewhat of a focus for the future, yeah, definitely.
Keep breathing, but I'll stay hopeful.
This is the senior center right here.
Do we,
Next
So,
one's coming.
do we need to take a break before we interview the
Anyone need a
next
break?
candidate? Anyone need a
Do
break?
the same questions?
Same
In
question, same order,
Okay.
consistency.
Yes. I forgot. Oh, you took a lot of notes.
I guess I did okay with my question. I always question what I do wrong instead of what I do right.
Focus on what you do
I
right.
know, and you know what? That's me.
Guess you do a great job.
Thank you. You know, I'm glad I joined this board, because I get all kinds of,
Look how much you've grown in just a
I've
week
grown in a
with
month.
using
Yeah, I have grown.
computer and all the programs.
Just for a bit, we're just chatting, we're waiting for the next.
I've definitely grown in the past 2 weeks.
I guess, we're taking a break?
I've got good helpers.
Yes. Oh, wait, he's going to get one.
That mic's not picking you up very well.
Don't even show.
Would you mind using the hand?
Do I have to hold it? No. I'll go like this. Can you hear me better this way? I'll just go like this when I talk. Okay.
But make sure Larry uses it.
Yeah, we'll go like this one. Okay. You don't have to get, now all of a sudden it's very loud.
It's just,
Was it this loud before? Are we echoing?
yeah.
And we're still on film, okay.
I mean, I don't want to say.
The PA, that's,
Did you leave this here?
Yeah.
This is another microphone. Okay.
It's been submitted for it, and it has gone.
That's where I graduated from, a few years prior to him.
He's young enough to be your son.
I know.
Front row and center.
Yeah. The corner in there.
If you want,
This
you
is
can.
Karen Campbell.
Hi, Karen.
Karen, if you want to put your things down over there so you're not bulky, yeah. Be more comfortable. I've got the eye on it.
How are you this evening?
Hi, Karen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Coming.
So we are the Council on Aging Board here in Groveland. We'll introduce, go down the line. Deb, you want to start?
Some quick introductions. I'm Deb Stevenson. I'm a relatively new member to the board. I've only been on since November, but enjoying it very much and learning a lot.
My name is Marie Waller. I'm on the board. I'm not as new as Deb, but sort of new.
Hi, my name is Irene Thomas, and Marie and I joined the board together 2 years ago,
That's
and so welcome.
wonderful, thank you.
Welcome, I'm Linda Brown, and I'm also a new board member since November, and enjoying it.
And I'm Barbara, on the board and as well as on the search committee, and I have also been on the board since November. November was a big month.
Yes. Our board's had a big changeover. And I'm Laurel Pahalski. I'm the chair of the board. And I've been on the Council on Aging Board off and on for about 8 years, I believe. And because I'm the most experienced, I got to be the chairperson. And welcome.
Thank you.
And we've met. I'm Larry McKelney. I was the chair of the search committee, and I have been a board member since June. You have an opening statement to make, and then we will have questions coming down. 7 of us have questions for you, so.
Okay, good. So, hello, thank you. I'm Karen Campbell, this was just announced. I'm very grateful for this opportunity and for your time tonight. I'm sure you're all very busy, so thank you sincerely for this. So I have about 22 years of experience in human services, social services, with the majority of those specifically working with seniors or elders or, you know, the greatest generation, however it really needs a better name, but individuals. And the few years that I haven't been, I've been as a communications manager for a neuropsychologist who specializes in brain health, which is traumatic brain injuries, concussions, and any neurological disorders, so strokes, Parkinson's, lots of sort of chronic conditions or that come over time that are very much related. You know, there's just a lot of things that sort of happen, you know, with the aging population and caregiving and dealing with the daily lives. I've had different positions I've held. I've worked in protective services, which is elder abuse and neglect. I've ran a respite nursing home program, which is exactly what it sounds like for caregivers that might need a week or a month or 2 weeks of a respite, of a break to go on vacation or maybe just to be home alone and to have that break from the 24-hour caregiving. I have worked as a private geriatric case manager. I have worked with the state of New Hampshire. It's a state title. So Administrator 1, which is the supervisor for the long-term care medical eligibility unit, which is the unit that determines acceptance in your annual redetermination for if you meet nursing home level of care for a facility or for home. So in Massachusetts, that's all the elder services. Don't exist in New Hampshire, the state runs it all. So it was that whole eligibility process. So I managed a team of nurses and case aides, along with, I was the second manager, administrator for all of the service providers that had the contracts with the state. So your nursing homes, your home care providers, the nursing contract, all of it, all what comes out of your elder services here, it's overseen by that department. So lots of hands in the buckets, and usually it was running from one fire to the next. Not gonna lie, that's a lot of what it was, but it's great. You know, I learned so much there. I learned about, you know, all the federal regulations and the state regulations, and sometimes they don't necessarily line up, and what do you do in those situations? So I'm sure at the town that never happens, but sometimes, you know, people are human and things happen. So when I saw this posting, my heart smiled a bit. So I think community council on agings are wonderful. I've never had the privilege of working for one before, but I'm very passionate about the mission and the message that comes out of such a community organization. You provide so many great needed services, like transportation, you know, like that's a key point. How do you get to the grocery store, the doctor's appointment, and your resources, and just quality of life programs, which I'm really excited about. So we're all living longer than our great-grandparents. Sometimes they say 20 years, sometimes they say 30 years, but what are we going to do with those extra years? And what's the quality of that life? And how do we make it the best it can be? And I see, you know, the Council on Aging's role is serving the community, and the director's role is what does the community want, and how to sort of act as a leader, a conduit, a partner, you know, your biggest advocate in making what the community wants happen. So it's meeting the community where they're at, and what do you all want? That's you know, the director's role is to support what the community wants. So I would look for focus groups, coffee hour, surveys to hear what feedback, what's worked, what do you want, what do you see, what are your concerns? So just because a lot of the seniors I've worked with have a big falling risk, you know, worried that that dog bumps into me, I'm going to fall, and then it just goes downhill, right? So is that a concern here? And do you already have programs? You know, if that is a big concern, what programs would you like to implement? There's lots of great evidence-based programs that there's funding for, and, you know, we can sort of start to put out so for the falls, people concerned about falls, there's the Stepping On program. I don't know if you already have it. I didn't see it. It doesn't mean you don't already have it. You know, it's a 8-week program for individuals who are at home, not in a facility, who don't use a walker or cane. Maybe some of them should, but they don't. And just, it looks at the whole person. So how do we improve, excuse me, how do we improve, I'm not going to get into the whole program, but there's lots of great programs there. So I'm excited for the position, for the opportunity to at least talk to you about it, because I think the Council on Aging is a wonderful organization, serving the needs and the quality, and I would be honored to be part of it, to sort of help the community and put in more programs that they might want or where their needs are. That is my ramble of a statement.
So
Okay.
we have, each one of us has questions for you,
Wonderful.
and just go like this if you feel. Let me have a rest for my voice.
I think I have a water. Is it okay?
Yes, yes. Good idea.
forgot to bring it this time. I brought it to the other meetings, I forgot this time.
I know I've had lots of water, and I haven't even been speaking that much today. Okay, so Deb, your first question.
I'm going to let Karen
Yes, I
finish
know, I'm
drinking.
just saying, be prepared.
Thank
Your
you.
first,
Free, keep it on the table if you want, I've got mine.
yeah, it's fine.
So your experience is fabulous, very, just tons of it. Other than your direct experience, what else makes you feel like you're a good match for this job?
I've been a personal caregiver to, it was actually my grandmother, but it was like my mom passed away. There's too much information. My mom passed away when I was young, so my grandmother was sort of my mother. So as my grandmother aged, I stepped back. So some of my the position I have now is part-time, and full disclosure, it was always because there was caregiving duties that I needed to attend to that I put first and would step down from a full-time job when I needed to. And I was a caregiver to her, and she's, an angel now. And I understand firsthand what that entails, and the love and the pain and the, struggle. So that's on that piece. And I just think that, I have a passion for the community and bringing community together, and I think the Council on Aging is a great spot to do that, so.
Okay. So this role is different. Council on Aging is different. I mean, you have, again, tons of elder care and elder experience. How will you know if you were to be hired? How are you going to know if that was a good decision on your part?
I think with anything, kind of, we look inside ourselves, and I understand what Council on Agings are, and although it is different from what I've done, I've had many different paperwork jobs, it's the contracts and the this and the sticking to the budgets and the, do you just at a computer working all day? And so I think, all the different pieces interact, and I enjoy all the different pieces. So I really do feel it's a great fit for myself and my personality and where I'm at. I don't think it would, I think it's a good fit for me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, excuse me, as you think about your time working for and with seniors, tell us about a professional accomplishment you are proud of, and then tell us of a time when you felt disappointed that you did not accomplish a particular goal.
Sure. So when I was a bit younger, when I was a protective service worker, we had a side sort of project. We had, the organization decided to implement a safe house shelter for people who needed, emergency housing, not to tell anybody, not undisclosed location. So I sort of said, I can do, they need somebody to get donations. And so I took on setting it all up. So managing the donations and requesting them and asking them and over there and, setting the whole place up. And it was in my younger days, but I was so happy to do something that was not in my typical job description, and it turned out a great success. We got it all, and the housing was up and running, and anybody who was in it was just so grateful, and it was comfortable. So that was wonderful. A more relevant example is just sort of with my team and my position with the state is getting the team that I supervise all on the same page. So it sort of answers both questions. So times when I was not as successful would be sometimes there's personality conflicts between employees at work and having to sort of manage that and sometimes the management techniques that I would try to implement, maybe the first one I tried wasn't successful. You know, tried talking to somebody and coaching them and meeting with them every day, and sometimes the meeting with them every day kind of had that big backlash, and that did not work out. But we started, you know, working on training goals and showing her that there was a future beyond this job. Where do you want to go? So let me help you get there. So, and then she, you know, did better where she's at to get there. But it took a few months for us to get there. So it was difficult. But I learned a lot about how to maybe navigate that the next time it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Difficult roads are good, effective teachers. Karen, how will you build relationships with seniors so that even those who might be uncomfortable or reluctant to take advantage of services and programs that are offered will come and feel inclusive and will feel as if they've been seen and heard?
That is a great question. So, you know, initially, as I mentioned, it would try to, you know, obviously meet people who come to the senior center to offer a coffee hour, offer some virtual, which there's still lots of people virtual can't reach. Maybe offer, like, I'm making this up off my head, but if there's a way, like a telephone call where people could call in to sort of a joint and message, and I could be there, like a meeting that they could still call in on the phone. And then find ways to reach those people that are not being reached. So, you know, if there's, I don't know all the resources you have, but if you have, you know, like if you have friendly visitors or a check-in list, so maybe I could tap into some of those people that might be in need for the friendly, you know, your visitor or your volunteers, and just, hi, I'm the new director, let me call and introduce yourself, I'm here if you need any help, give me a call. You know, and sort of kind of make your way down the list, and then sometimes it gets creative. You know, if there's people that in the community that names come about they might be concerned about, but, you know, doesn't fall to the list of protective, but we're a little worried about, you know, Mrs. Smith, then reaching out specifically to any names that people want to share, and I can, you know, sometimes it's phone calls, sometimes, you know, if it's allowed, like just show up and just say hi, and just want to introduce myself in person in the face if you come in. And then it's follow-up, right? It's going and going, because people, you know, sometimes it takes a lot of times before they're ready to open the shell and come, and you never know. Is it the first time? Is it you know, after a year and a half, and then they're ready? And it's just keeping at it and letting them know that we're here if they want to, and how can we help, and if they get in a pinch, you know, the services that are available.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. We're a small town and we have limited financial resources. If there was a program that you believed was critical to offer Groveland seniors and there was no money in the budget, what steps would you take to provide that program?
Sure. Well, first I would try to find out if the community wanted the program, and if the community really wants the program, then look for ways to try to make it happen. So what does it cost, you know, ultimately, and then look at the budget that we have. Is there ways to pull from other areas? Is that within the rules? Is that allowed? Because some funding has to be spent specific ways. So look for the funding where might we have some wiggle room, like maybe sometimes in the wording, it's allocated for this, but it'll also say, and that, and you say, oh, we can also use it for that. So it's going back to the you know, funding sources and realizing what are they used for, so you categorize it that, and what can we have that we could sort of shift. And if that doesn't work, start applying to grants. Perhaps if people are open, fundraising too, that's always an option. And searching and applying to grants, even if I don't always get them all, but I'm a big fan of putting in that application and trying the best to see where we get. Every little bit helps.
Have you had experience with applying for grants?
Yeah.
And what did you learn from that?
Oh, dot your i's and cross your t's and write a lot of detailed information. I have never submitted a grant application that I was the only person completing it. So, fill it out, give it to other sets of eyes for review. There's a legal attorney on staff, even for the town. That's great. If we can't access that, who can we pull in? What, just what am we missing? How can we make this the best it can be? Sending them in, and then when you get them, which is great, and then there's all the documentation for the follow-up of how you spent the money and what did you do with it and all that. So, yes.
Okay. Tell us about a challenging human resource issue with which you've dealt as a supervisor, including the challenge, your actions, and the outcome.
Sure. So, sorry, I'm going to think a moment here. Sometimes there was an employee who means well, but she was just sort of checked out of her job. And so her performance stats were a quarter, far lower. She's not doing, so I have to go in every day and check the numbers. Not usually, because usually everybody's performing great, but once you kind of see a problem, you have to go in and look at the review. So I always say, show me the facts and data. So just because other people on the team were complaining about Sally, doesn't mean that Sally wasn't doing a job. So let's get the facts and data. What's everybody doing? Where is she in her team? And so pull the numbers, watch the numbers. And bringing it up to the person, in supervision, this is sort of where we're at. I start soft. This is where we're at. We need you to do. And sometimes it doesn't, even soft starts don't go over well, or they're like, yeah, and she didn't. She was kind of done with her position. She didn't want to keep doing this. So we tried. It took, same thing, coaching, and this is where we need you to be at. I feel like I'm not answering the question right now. How did it end up?
What was the outcome?
So it took a while, and I guess the same thing I said before. It came down to sort of training and setting goals for where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? How can I help you to get there? So you want a promotion from here? Okay, so what do you need to get that promotion? You need to learn, okay, some of it was a master's. These are some grants, that there's funding to help pay, or is it another Excel program? A lot of times it's learning that new skills. So let me pull in HR, what benefits we have to get you. Let me get these extra trainings for you so you help you reach that goal. But while you're here, I really need you, you're going to write up a performance review. It doesn't always, sometimes they just go more downhill. So it's what's the apple, what's the goal, what do you want for you? That's what's going to inspire that person to do better, even if it is, I want to get out of here. Okay, let me help you work better yourself so you can, and while you're here, still keep going. Sort of kind of how I managed through those.
Okay, and the second part of the question is kind of similar. Tell us about a conflict between yourself and another person in the workplace and how you managed it.
Sure. We all have conflicts, so I'm more of a, sometimes I may not agree with another person's, a coworker's at my level, a peer at my levels, so it's like, you know, a mid-manager, management styles. And how they led their team, that's not my team, but sometimes when you work collaboratively, because none of us all function in silos, right? We still cross paths and we still intertwine when you're in for large organizations. You know, sort of the just get it done, cut the corners, just get the numbers done, and I'm more of a do it right. I don't care if it takes you twice as long, because then when you just push the numbers through, you make all these mistakes that comes back to me with all the phone calls. You know, the thing is, it impacts somebody down the line. So, I'll give you a more specific example. When I worked for the state, there's a lot of people in line for Medicaid. It's a long process, it's slow, but Mr. Smith knows my coworker, so who I'm gonna call her, because you work for the state, and I gotta get my wife, my daughter in this program, what can you do to push it along? It's like, but every time that happens, you're pushing everybody else who's been waiting their 2 months down the list, and that's not fair, that's not right. And that's what I would have a problem with, is that I will call them, can call them up and say, thank you, this is where we are, this is the expected time frame, you know, if we're missing anything, and I will make sure that did we make any mistakes, make sure we didn't make any mistakes, but this is the time frame so that you know it, but I'm not gonna cut corners because you know somebody, because then somebody who doesn't know somebody waits longer and longer and longer, and that's not right.
If you could invite someone to come here tonight and speak on your behalf, who would it be, and why would you choose that person?
Well, I probably would pick Dr. Diane Roberts-Tiller, the psychologist that I currently work for. She is an amazing, brilliant woman who I've known for years and years and years. So she would know me as an employer. I worked for her for so long, and she's known me like on a personal level and my ins and outs. And I greatly respect her and the work that she does and how she, you know, cares so much for her patients. And I think she would have a lot of really great things to say about me as well.
What 3 things do you think she'd say about you?
3 things. I think she'd say I was caring, I was hardworking, and extremely competent.
I'm sorry.
Competent?
Competent, okay. And what might she say, or maybe someone else, say that you have an area that you need to grow in or better develop?
My presentation skills probably need a bit of improvement in public speaking. I need to work on that, but getting there.
It's nerve-wracking. Look at us, we're like a firing squad at you.
No, you guys are great.
We're trying to be welcoming, you know.
You are, you
Our
are,
pretty
you
little
are.
cards and
I like it, and I like the colors.
Yeah.
We like the colors, too.
We like the colors, too.
color coding, yeah. Thank you.
You can carry that everywhere now.
Good answers.
So we are in a period of transition in the COA in Groveland, and you would be part of the rebuilding process. Could you tell us how you would approach it coming in new, not knowing the landscape, or, you know, what would you be, how would you engage?
Sure. I'd start by reading everything I could find on sort of the policies or procedures or operating codes that what the town has, what might be buried in somebody's office on, you know, a binder. So just trying to learn as much as I can from documentation where we're at, budgets where we're at, you know, and then, start to learn what needs to be done and what is the order of priority. What's on fire, what just needs to be done routine, and what is we would like to do this, but, you know, these are some of the other more critical factors. And I would talk to as many people, you know, that I could here to give me some of that information too, and just try to absorb and learn at first. I'm rambling, where we are and where we need to go, so I can appropriately, you know, take the right step, but make sure it's the right step before I take it.
Is there anything that you would like to add about yourself that would like us to consider?
I've shared a lot tonight, so I think I would be fabulous at the job, and you should hire me. No, I hope you find the right person with the right qualifications for the right fit, and as much as I hope it's me, if the other candidate is far superior, I just hope you find the right person, and I hope you, as an organization, thrive. And it's a transition time, right? Coming out of the pandemic, and is it gone? Is it not? It's still here, and there's all these mixed feelings, and trying to adapt to this crazy world. And I'm sure there's lots to do, but I'm just really grateful for the opportunity and tonight, and I thank you for your time.
If you are selected to be the next director, when could you begin?
I would need like a 2-week notice.
Okay. And do you have any questions for the committee, for the board, rather?
For the board.
Yeah, for the board.
I think at the moment I'm okay. Who is the no, I'll ask later.
No, ask, this is the time.
So has the position been vacant for a few months, and is the assistant director been sort of running everything, or how's it been?
Well, she's running the day-to-day operations, yes, but the board has been kicking in. So I've been acting director with no experience. There you go. And, you know, we also have lost our outreach work coordinator.
Yeah.
She was offered a full-time position somewhere else. So in the meantime, the board has picked up on that, not necessarily doing all the outreach, but at least getting the food pantry up and running and working. And we've been handling the budgets and the annual reports and things like that as a board.
Okay.
And also the search. So
It's a lot.
it's been a lot. So we're really looking for a director, ASAP. Do any of you have any other questions for her? I was just wondering if, and do you have any more questions for us?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you for
well,
coming in.
thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you very much. Thank you.
It's nice meeting you.
Our
you.
condolences on your grandmother and your mother.
Yeah, I
Oh, yes.
should not be disclosing that during a job interview,
No,
but you know.
It shows your passion.
Honesty,
Yeah.
transparency,
It's-
all matter,
it's where we're
and
at.
And your
passion, yeah.
compassion.
So, all right. Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Take care. Okay. So. Questions, comments? Oh, we'll wait till Larry comes back. Yeah.
I did all on here.
Well, I'm good at making a mess.
Well, I can't read half the stuff I write anyway, so might as well have it on big piece of paper. Decisions. They were fast interviews, really.
Yours was very fast. His was twice as long. I'll make my comments when Larry comes back.
No.
He looks tired.
Wake up.
It's only 7:30.
I know.
7:30.
I know.
Good, huh?
Well, we started a little earlier on each.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
people from the search committee, did you have any comments from
Yes.
the former, that you could add? But go ahead.
well, she didn't interview anywhere near as well tonight, I didn't feel, as she did when we had our interview in the search committee. Some of her answers then were vague. I would say that today, almost all of her answers were vague and lacked a lot of passion and interest. I don't think she at all answered the question about why she would be a good match. For the council year, she's done the caregiving, which is certainly commendable and wonderful, but, that's a teensy-weensy, she wouldn't do that here, And she really didn't have anything revolutionary to offer about how would she build relationships within the Council on Aging, and nothing on promoting the COA that was really revolutionary. I just felt, unfortunately, she didn't interview terribly well.
But her first interview was
Well, she appeared
different
stronger.
questions.
She appeared stronger. Let's see if I can look at anything particular. Anything different?
Some people don't do that.
I agree that, it wasn't a stellar interview tonight.
Mm.
She seemed nervous,
And you can understand why. Sitting,
firing.
Some people don't interview
It's like a
well.
fire.
you're also sitting here in front of a board with microphones in our faces, and it was a
Yeah.
little bit different because we were in executive session. It was a little bit more relaxed than this, and it's pretty nerve-wracking to sit in that chair and
I
have all
felt
these
for her.
questions
I just
thrown
wanted
at
to
you.
say, start over.
But clearly we have one of the candidates is more of a human services background, and Sean has I would be more clear, Karen has more of a human services background, which is valuable in this job, and Sean but she also has some administrative responsibilities and experience. Sean is a little bit heavier in the business, but he also has experience working on the Council on Aging. So you have, a pretty clear choice in terms of, where they are coming from. And I go back to the question of who do you think is a better fit for the Council on Aging, where we are now and going forward. So that is our quest, is to find which of these is the better candidate.
Well, I'm wondering if, does anyone else have any other comments about or things? I mean, I felt she was a little bit nervous and on edge, and we're not looking for a public speaker necessarily. I mean, I think if she were here, like at a COA social or something, it wouldn't be as intimidating as the firing squad sitting here looking at her right here. I mean, so I feel she had compassion. But again, I don't think she answered the questions, at least to my satisfaction. There was a different, but she did have the grant writing experience as well, so that's an important thing. Okay, I was like, now go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No, it's
interrupt
okay.
you, but
Are we done with board discussion? On to public comments?
well, I was going to say, we do have a public comment, and did you want to read it, or do you want us to read it? Well, it's public comment. Okay. I didn't know if you would, I have it here too. I have it, oh, yeah.
I won't pass them down.
Oh, can we interview you? Oh, God, no.
Oh, come on.
I might just be.
Let's ask her the same questions, to see how
Let's
nervous
go,
she
let's
is.
see. Okay, to the Groveland Council on Aging Board, I wanted to first thank you for all of your efforts that you have all put in to find the next COA director and supporting the Council on Aging. It was not an easy task, and you all sincerely took the time and effort to support the Council on Aging in the time of transition. We are extremely lucky in the town of Groveland to have such wonderful, dedicated, and committed volunteers. I would like to pass along some of my thoughts on one of your candidates, Sean Cass. When I first read his resume, I found it to be professional and thorough. It wasn't until we interviewed him that I found that there were many similarities to the words that he used in his interview with what the search committee was looking for in their director. Transition, rebuilding, mutual respect, listening, compassion, and valued. Those words alone truly spoke to me as an individual, as I believe our current employees and board members have those same qualities. I believe Sean is the type of individual that he will support the seniors of Groveland and get to know each person and ensure their needs are met. I believe that he will bring excellent ideas to the board and department to enrich what we provide today. He wants our current employees to see where they fit into the big picture and how they are valued for each task and what they bring to the table. He read our newsletters, reviewed our website, as well as the Friends on Council on Aging, has experience with my senior center, Vadar, which is our accounting software in town, and is the type of person to jump with both feet in. He has experience with leadership, supervisor roles, fiscal and grant experience, empathy of the aging process, understands confidentiality, and will be able to be a strong advocate for the Groveland Council on Aging and the programs. I also had a chance to speak with Merrimack Board of Selectmen member Chris Manny regarding Sean. We both had a similar impression as what I had stated above. I gained these feelings and knowledge all from a 1-hour interview with him, and hope to see what he can do for our wonderful town of Groveland and the seniors for many years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your letter. Is there anybody else? Public comment? Mr.
I'd
Jen?
like to know,
Can you hear him? Yes? No?
Mike, you
Miss-
want to grab a?
Oh, you want to come up, Mike?
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to know why he wants to come to Groveland. You know, why is he leaving Merrimack? I noticed you didn't ask that question.
He's already
Maybe
left.
it's answered in the resume, I don't know.
He already left.
The other
Merrimack.
thing is, I'm just wondering what you thought about him being a little too verbose. Yeah, he had a lot to say, a lot of good things to say, but seemed like he talked a lot. So, you know, those are two comments that I have.
Okay, first of all, he left the Merrimack COA a couple of, when was it? Let me see. He was there, he was almost like the assistant director over at Merrimack. Here he goes. Well, they called him the program coordinator, similar to what Nisha is doing, but more than the program coordinator. And somebody had mentioned he's more of the assistant director, like, it's a little different. And he worked there from August 2021 till May 2022. He decided, well, I don't know if he mentioned that to you why he left, but when I talked to him the day of his initial interview, I was the escort, and we just sat and shot the breeze. And he is a good listener. He's not, because I'm a talker too, so the two of us were competing talking. But he said he just felt there were some issues there that he didn't want to get involved with, and he said, maybe I need to go back. And also, I believe that's when he moved. No, maybe not. He had moved before that. But he went back into business management, and he said to me that was where he realized he had made a mistake. That's not where his passion was. So when he saw this position, he applied. That's what he told me. I don't know if he said that in his initial interview.
I think he covered that in his.
Or his
cover
letter.
The
Right, well,
1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph.
yes,
down.
that, his cover, can we read that? That's, yeah, I guess.
I guess so.
He said, last year I came upon an opportunity
Yes,
at the
that
Merrimack
paragraph.
COA, and it did not take long for me to realize that this is the type of work I find fulfilling, where I am compelled to work tireless on behalf of a population that I care so deeply about. A brief re-entry into the corporate world has provided further validation that I am indeed ready to move on from that phase of my career and return to the municipal work that provided so much gratification and purpose. So I think he gave it a try, and then he said, I'll go back to business, and I want this. So he's back again. I mean, it was a short stint in there. But he is going to be on the board, or is on the board, of the Merrimack Senior Center,
Yes.
just starting, and Merrimack Housing Authority. They have a center.
Yes, they have a center.
So,
Which might provide an opportunity for some cross-pollination.
Yes.
In terms of,
Yes.
between the two towns. Obviously, the Merrimack Council on Aging, with a staff of 8 and a senior center, is where we would like to be someday. We're
Yes.
not there. So,
good question, though. Anyone else? Oh, we did, you answered, it. You had another question. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm also wondering, we have a rundown of what was learned when the town administrator checked the resources?
References.
The references, that's the right word, references.
Yes.
And the director, the COA director in Merrimack, had a list of very positive comments about Sean and his work there. So so he enjoyed his work there. They worked together as a team, from what she says. And he left, I guess, for another business opportunity in the corporate world, and then decided that was not the right fit for him. So this is the kind of work that he's looking for, because he wants to do what he loves and what he feels he has a passion for.
I mean, all the references that we received for everybody were very,
Well, that's kind of to be
Yeah.
expected.
yeah, no, I know. But they weren't from, people like their mothers. Don't laugh. There are people that do that.
First I thought you said my mother.
I did find that was an interesting question to ask.
What?
What person would you have come to speak on your behalf, and what would they say about you?
Mhm.
That was a good question.
It wasn't mine.
Oh, whose was it? Somebody's.
Somebody who's an experienced
Very
interviewer.
good. No, that was a good question. And especially in what would they say that you have to work on? Because they revealed their true selves. Any other comments? So, I think it's down to taking votes. So we need to decide how we would like to vote. Do you want to do paper ballot or roll call vote?
I move that we vote by paper ballot.
I second it.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi, okay.
We need discussion.
Yes.
Moved in
discussion.
second. Discussion? Now you can.
Okay, I should know this, but all these years. Last meeting, I kept forgetting to do that. We did the motions and we forgot to do the rest. Okay, so here's your ballot. Take one, pass it on. Hopefully, we won't have to do it twice. And we,
What do we decide on the,
okay, so the next thing we need to decide is, do we do simple majority or unanimous, or how? Or do we decide that? No, we can't decide that afterwards. Simple majority. 4 out of 7?
4 out of, yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I guess, should we,
vote on
if
that?
it were to come out a 4-3 vote,
Mm-hmm.
should we give the opportunity for the 3 to present their reasoning?
Right.
Oh, I see.
To add more discussion
Yeah.
time.
Yes, that's a
I
very.
could have gone, I can go home and get my Ruth Bader Ginsburg dissension necklace if you want.
That's a very, that's a very
I'm just
fair
thinking,
way.
if it comes
That is
out
a
that,
fair-
if
right.
it comes out that closely, if it's not 4-3, if it's anything, then we probably don't
Right.
need to do it, but if it is that close,
If it's close,
So what do we do?
that's very good.
just let the three
Writing
explain
the
why.
Good idea.
So write the name of the candidate who you would like to see be hired. Fold it up in quarters and eighths and tenths. No. Pass it down. And I'll mix them up so I don't know whose is whose.
I have
Is
them all.
everybody's?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Thank you.
We're doing a
Sorry.
clean
It's thin
sweep here.
paper.
You want to read them? Mixing them up, mixing them up, mixing them up. Do I read each one or just count?
I just counted.
Remember how to spell the name, people.
Oh, I used my resource.
Somebody else, too. Unanimous. Should I tell the people? It's unanimous for Sean Cass to be presented to the Board of Selectmen at their Monday meeting. Larry, you have all the information. Will you, or do you want me to?
You should, as.
I should, as the chair, okay, I have his information on this, don't I? We will send an offer of, oh, we can't offer employment. Just tell him that he need, he's been appointed by the board and that he needs his formal
being
appointment.
recommended by the board.
Recommended.
Yeah.
Well, it's an appointment by the board
Oh,
and
okay.
then, or as a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Oh,
And
Yes,
then,
okay.
from there, we,
Can that be on next week's?
it can, because I believe, well, Larry said that he asked Rebecca if it could be put on, and she said it could be put on the agenda even though they didn't know a name, correct?
I didn't see her response.
Okay,
Okay.
I thought she had responded that. Well, I think the last time we can get in is Friday morning, first thing. I'll send it tonight, as soon as I get home. I'll send her an email, please.
So clarifying question?
Yes.
There is a Board of Selectmen meeting on the 30th,
Is that Monday?
That's
Monday.
Monday?
There is?
Monday,
and it starts at 6:30.
6:30.
Do we
Okay.
need to go to that?
It would be, I don't know if we all need to go, but it would be nice if someone would be there to represent him, to support. I mean, I went forward when we asked to have Maureen appointed. It'd be nice if the board came.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
And I want to thank the search committee for all the hard work. You guys were very helpful, and
Yes, definitely, yes. And thank you, Larry, for being the chair for the search committee.
I moved that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Second. Oh,
It's
somebody
seconded.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, were we supposed to have discussion on that?
Who seconded that one?
I
Did.
did.
Peoples.
I did a second.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Good night, good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
So if you would like, I
We
can
can go off
collect the
now.
names